So you were born when Daddy was really getting a name for himself. Perhaps not totally established, because he hadn't gone into the Cormanesque era just as you were born, was he? So what was it like being a growing daughter of somebody who was still gaining worldwide status?
You know, I mean, he began his career in 1935, so he'd already been, an actor for 25 years, but the horror was really where he was gaining momentum. And so I think that was something that he was really coming to terms with when I was a kid. And I really didn't see him in terms of the horror. I saw him as somebody who loved art, and that was really the passion that I saw. And he was as famous, at least in the United States, for his love of art and eventually cooking as he was for the horror genre. So that was really the person I saw, because I was too scared to see the horror.
Okay, that's a lovely attitude. So as you grew up, did you see Vincent the actor, or Vincent the art collector and the master of the cuisine?
I of course knew he was an actor, but I saw him mostly do the things where he spoofed himself. So I saw him do a lot of television in the United States, like The Brady Bunch and Mod Squad and Get Smart and Batman and all of those things. That's what I saw him do.
And did that kind of cause any hassle or any up status, if anything, whilst you were at school? I mean, obviously everybody must have known who...
Well, I went to a school where, the majority of the kids were kids of celebrities. So in my class alone was Nat King Cole's daughter, Clark Gable's son, Eartha Kitt's daughter, Darren and Sandra Dees. I mean, the whole class was celebrity kids. And, even as a little girl, I understood that there was sort of a hierarchy of celebrity. So you started first with the producers, because they were the ones who gave everybody else the jobs.
Yes.
And so there was an American television producer named Quinn Martin, and everything on television was a Quinn Martin production, FBI and Streets of San Francisco. And so he was sort of top of the heap. And his daughter, Jill, had the most lavish birthday parties. I mean, the birthday parties were unbelievable. They would rent out the entire Walton schoolroom or screen National Velvet, or, it was really unbelievable. And so we always knew that the producers were top of the heap. Then came the directors, because they gave, the producers hired the directors gave the actors the jobs. And then came the dead actors, so Clark Gable in terms of status, and you knew this even when you were a kid. Then came the actors, and then sort of below that slightly were the sports stars and the musicians. You knew the hierarchy growing up. I mean, it was very clear that there was a hierarchy. And obviously the people who were really the successful and powerful people, like the lawyers and the doctors, when they were at the bottom of the heap.
I bet. Were you comfortable with other celebrities turning up at the house?
I wasn't allowed to watch television, so I really didn't know who anyone was.
Okay.
So I just knew them as friends, and so the only television, I was allowed to watch television after a certain time, and the only thing that was on at 7 o'clock in Los Angeles when I was growing up were reruns of I Love Lucy. So really the only celebrity I ever cared about was Lucille Ball. I just thought she was the best thing. And so my dad did an episode of Here's Lucy, and I must have been maybe about 9, and I got to go watch that film, and I was so excited to meet Lucille Ball, and he was great friends with Lucille Ball. And so my mom and I were sitting in the studio audience, and my dad was sort of playing himself. He was this art expert. And in the script, Lucille Ball calls up Vincent Price's house, and she gets my mom on the phone, and she says, "Oh, hi, Mary, how are you?" And she said, "And how's little Vicky?" And I hate the name Vicky, but the fact that Lucille Ball called me anything, I was like, "Oh, I've arrived." So that was the highlight of my childhood.
Was Vincent at home much? In other words, what I'm saying is, did he raise you as your atypical father?
To the degree that somebody who was a workaholic, who was away from home a lot, I mean, when he was home, he was very much the typical dad. I mean, he would take me down to wait for the school bus, and we would play catch together. And he took me to the park all
This
the
is
time.
hard to imagine. It's so hard to imagine.
No,
But please,
he was a big
Prego,
kid. He was
continue.
a big kid at heart, and he always he loved doing. I mean, the thing we had the most fun doing was going to amusement parks and riding what he liked to call roller coasters. And I have a brother who's 22 years older than I am, and my brother didn't like roller coasters, so I think he was really happy when I came along because he finally had company. Because he did a special when he was in his 70s, and it was called something like, I don't know, Scream and Scream Again, or something. I mean, it was something with Scream. And he rode all the biggest roller coasters in America, and this was a man in his 70s, and he was doing the loops, and he was a big kid at heart.